Yo, yo, welcome back to another afternoon, morning, mid morning
Late
edition of Dog
morning?
Day. I don't know that I've gotten any sleep, Mike. It's been the last, 24 hours ish
Yeah, yeah,
has been
yeah,
actually this whole week, this whole month. Now that
yeah,
I think about it, it's just been
yeah.
nuts. So
Slow news cycle in pool these days, right?
I don't know why on earth I scheduled this on this day, knowing that we had Moscone announcements coming up. It completely just,
What's
I
what's
come.
bigger? What's bigger news, Mike? The Moscone Cup announcement or trying to fix pool?
I don't know. I guess it just depends on who you ask, So it depends on what part of the country you're in, what part of the world you're in, no doubt. I'm sure in Germany right now, Moscone's pretty big. In Virginia, Moscone's pretty big.
Yeah, big celebration in Roanoke today, right?
Yeah, for sure, without a doubt. Congratulations to Josh and Wolford to making Team Europe and Team USA respectively. We'll have reaction and follow up with that. I'm still going to get SVB on the show. I know he's playing Sky Woodward right now, some one pocket out there in Roanoke. So as soon as he's that, we're probably going to get him on. Tyler Steyer
No,
will be coming on as well. It's a
nothing will
busy
get you
day.
in stroke for Moscone Cup better than a good one packet tournament.
Ah, well, yeah. Let the arm loose, Mike. Let the chicken wing loose.
Let's-
Um, I'm trying to think of who else we got on deck. Oh, Josh. Josh is coming on Friday at noon Eastern. I'm going to post that graphic a little later on today.
nice.
Um, so we're going to be stacked, and of course, the news here. The guest that we have on, Mike Ishaun Singh, president of the WPA. I got to be honest with you, Mike. I'm pretty surprised we're here today.
Well, you know what? It's good of them, and I applaud them for coming on. Last time it got a little bit hostile, but I think he knows in the end that we're all trying to pull the rope in the same direction, but we've got different ideas on how that should be done. And we're at a point in pool where we've had more going on than we have had in decades, and that's usually when there tends to be a little turf protection and headbutting. So let's see if he can help clarify some situations for us, and let's see if we can help you know get everybody to sing kumbaya.
We got a lot on the agenda today, a lot of questions to be asked, a lot of things we need clarification on. Following the news from the General Assembly out there in Qatar, as you guys may or may not be aware, starting, what is it, Mike, March 2nd, right?
Uh,
It's your 4th,
yes,
2nd, 4th, somewhere around March, beginning of March. Any players not playing or playing in non sanctioned WPA events will be suspended effective immediately. I think that also runs at the tail end of the Predator World 10 Ball event going out there in Vegas as well. So, um, yeah, we're gonna have tons of things to discuss. I got to be honest with you, Mike. I ain't studied this much or crammed this much or
since your
prepared this
driving
much.
test or what?
I bombed that thing. I still ain't got a license. But no, I'm kidding. No, but it's important, and I think we all want resolution. We're hopeful to have more of a positive outcome this time around.
Right.
So and just have it be, a healthier environment to have a discussion. And if I was him, Mike, I probably wouldn't have came on after what happened last time. I'm just being honest with you, like between me and you.
Well,
So
we've got to show them that we've grown up since then.
speak speak for yourself, Panozo. But let's bring on the guest of the hour via South Africa, Ishaun Singh, president of the WPA. Welcome back, Ishaun.
Thank you. Yeah, it
Excited?
is. I guess I should be right.
Did the board approve you coming on back on the show after what happened last time? What were some of the words being used around there?
Well, I don't think it was just from the board, but probably just from
Family
about
members, friends.
every circle. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, look, fortunate. The thing I got going for me is I'm still, let's say, new at this, and uh, I do think that I have to try everything possible to fix what we have, because as you said, Mike, we're at our best time ever in the sport in terms of events. So if we lose this opportunity, I don't think we're going to get it again.
No,
I don't
true.
think this turn is going to come around in our generation, so or in our time rather. So I think whatever can be done, however little it may be, or big, I'm willing to try.
Well, let's start October 7th in Qatar, General Assembly for the WPA, where the issue of sanctioning players, the issue of unsanctioned events was the big one on the table. Can you talk us through a little bit, give us a little, take us inside the boardroom a little bit and tell us, what was the discussion like? What were the main points? Was there dissension at all, dissenting votes, things like that? What were the arguments against what ended up being voted on? What can you tell us about that meeting since we weren't there?
What I can tell you is that it took up almost 80% of our time. There were a lot of things that needed to be discussed, and this particular topic, there was debates, there was talks. Each continent has its own challenges, so there was a lot of discussion around this topic, and eventually the decision had to be made. We all knew nobody was looking forward to it, but there was, from our perspective, or the WPA perspective, there was no other choice that we were left with but to make the decision that we made, as you've seen the press release. And that was, I think it was more than 6 or 7 hours later that decision was made. It was done on October 7th. The press release went out the next day to all the members. Basically, what it states is that after 28th Feb or 1st March, from that date onwards, any player playing in events not sanctioned that qualify for sanctioning will basically be making a choice that they don't want to play in WPA events. So I think we spoke about that in our last podcast, that I predicted that kind of thing. What I think is important
that
to
went
know
over
about
well.
what I do think is important, maybe discussing what happens in the boardroom itself is not, in my opinion, as important as what I think I can tell you, is that I'm currently the president of the organization. So I'm basically the head of the board, and then we present to the General Assembly. So what transpired and what took place, I would say, is largely led by me at this stage. I'm the one on the ground dealing with all the issues that we are facing, that's coming through, my board and I. And so the decisions that took place should really be focused on me, because it's what we presented to the board. What I'm glad is that the General Assembly supported me in finally voting in this direction, and they also, as I said, didn't find any alternatives.
Well, it was not a unanimous vote, correct?
No, it was not a unanimous vote.
So what were the dissenting opinions? What were the alternate? I know you don't want to, you want to talk about what was said and not what was not taken, done, but what were some of the objections to what was going to be voted on?
It wasn't exactly objections. It in fact, it was, it's weird. It's more fair to say that the majority had a problem, with actually going this way, because we all knew the effects that it'll have on our individual continents or national countries where we come from. But there was no other way to fix the problem. And as you know, the non-sanctioned events we're referring to at this point in time is largely, or almost all, matchroom run events.
Right.
And the people our members initially questioned me, what did we do? Just making certain that we tried our best. You must understand, it's so hard for some of us and the members to comprehend Matchroom's decision not to sanction their events with the WPA, something that they've done for so long. So I had to face questions like, hey, you're the president from 23, and only from 23, Matchroom chooses not to sanction anymore. What have I done?
That's your legacy.
Yeah, so walk into that, and because they can't comprehend it. People, as you all know, those of you, Mike, you've been around long enough, longer than me. Matchroom and WPA has had this long relationship. So there's it's very, very, very hard to answer these people, and they wanted to know up until what was our last attempt to resolve that, and I did inform them that our last attempt was a week before the General Assembly at the US Open, and unfortunately, Matchroom chose or said that they will not work with the WPA. So we had to make a decision. So that's what happened. The people voted. I think almost everybody, even though they voted for this decision, I don't think everyone did it willingly. Just that nobody was left with any. They couldn't present an alternative choice onto the table.
We've heard that Matchroom reached out twice prior to the ban and stating that they're willing to recognize the WPA with no sanctioning fee, but haven't heard back, Ishaun. That's what I've gotten from Matchroom. That on two separate occasions prior to the ban that they reached out, and I'm pretty sure that's including the what you're referring to at the U.S. Open as being one of them.
Oh, well, I wish that was true. You and I wouldn't be talking on this topic if that was. So, no, our vice president attended. As I said, we were told, bottom line, Matchroom's not willing to work with the WPA. They don't mind working with the national federations directly, but they will not work with the WPA. If they want to work, we offered just about everything. I mentioned it before. The sanctioning, the word sanctioning is what it's like a killer. People think that's the poison, and most other people, like social media, says it's so that we can collect this money and fly around the world first class and all that kind of nonsense. But with Matchroom, and as you'll have heard and know, that they already have one event sanctioned, the World Championship, and yes, they pay us a sanctioning fee for that. The other events, to solve the problems, we'd offered the CEO, all kinds of solutions where money was not even the object.
Like what? What kind of solutions?
Where money was not an object, where they didn't have to pay for it. So the Matchroom can be viewed as a client in total. So and that was done in Poland. My vice president and I spoke to Ms. Fraser, and yeah, we said we can talk about the rest of the events, just to have it sanctioned. There were some issues around the rules, of the game. We said already Matchroom's kind of setting the rules, so we as a world body are getting left second in terms of the rules. So that too is not worth fighting. Usually when we sanction an event, you would need to follow the WPA rules.
Right.
But
so you told them that they didn't have to follow your rules.
As far as formally playing the game, right? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, 1 on the spot, 9 on the spot, that type of thing.
Okay.
So did you tell them that they could play by their rules?
Yeah, what I did tell them is we can change our rules. If they are the main promoter for 9-ball, it doesn't help WPA stick into a set of rules that the majority of the people are not playing by. So, in other words, that was on the table to fix, so that that was not going to be a deterrent. We were trying to find what is stopping Matchroom from sanctioning with the WPA.
What is your opinion on what that is?
Right.
I have a personal opinion that has been it has come about with all the interactions. As we are here, the world, the players that have approached us, they are broken about what potentially is going to happen next year. So when you start thinking, why wouldn't Matchroom sanction? As you know, that was mentioned before, they wanted to have the only ranking, the official world WPA world ranking, 9-ball ranking. It was something that they had asked, and we refused to give. And I thought, well, they have their ranking right now. They have everything. Doesn't matter whether WPA is recognizing it or not. What is the problem then? And my guess, the only thing that is sanctioning versus not sanctioning is acknowledging who owns the sport, if one wants to use the word own, because Matchroom is a company, and I've watched Barry Hearn's interviews where he said what he's done in snooker and what he's done with darts, and I believe they own the majority interest in that as a company, and I think, in my opinion, that's what they were looking to do, own 9-ball. And as long as they sanction it with the WPA, it kind of says they don't own it, so it can't increase the stock of the company, anything like that, because somebody else is sanctioning it. So that's my guess, because other than that, like I said, I can't figure out why would we going through this problem.
If they came today and said what I heard, they came to you today and said, we're willing to recognize the WPA, no sanctioning fees, what would be the issue from the WPA standpoint then?
I can, as a president, I can quite clearly tell you that for the rest of the events, Matchroom as a client is worth what we have already. So I would easily say no further sanctioning fee for the rest of the events. If that's the reason they're not sanctioning, if it's the money.
So,
if it's
so
the
clearly,
rules,
but then
clearly it's
what?
not the money.
Yeah.
Clearly it's not the money. So what is it in the, you guys met in Poland and there was a contract on the table, correct? For Matchroom and WPA to recognize Matchroom's 9-ball ranking. There was a contract,
yes.
correct? Okay. What in that contract specifically said or gave you the impression that they would gain ownership of the term 9-ball and anything that goes along with 9-ball from a marketing and sales standpoint?
Well, the one thing that I can clearly remember was the recognition to the 9-ball ranking. I think it was called World 9-ball ranking,
right,
as being the only 9-ball ranking, official ranking for the WPA. So it was going to go onto our website as the official and only World 9-ball ranking. In a way, to us, so we got to read deeper into that to get to the statement I made, that in a way that's referring to ownership.
What would that if you agreed to that, how would that affect an event like the China Open, the Qatar Open, other major 9-ball events?
It basically will give them no choice but to fall under the Matchroom ranking. It would force them to into that, yeah.
Is there a downside to being part of the ranking?
No. It's not about that. It just, there's no need for the ownership. If I'm not sure if I don't have any screenshots to show you, but prior to this year, the ranking on the WPA website had the Matchroom logo next to the 9-ball ranking. We gave them as much as possible to show that they're attached to the ranking. Just not the not the owner, not being the sole authority for it. That's what it was. But we gave as much as we could. It was right up there. We had had companies calling us to ask can they sponsor the other rankings, because the most popular page on the WPA website is the world rankings.
Okay. This is a lot.
Go,
There's
Mike.
A lot going on.
Yeah, no, it's, it obviously, Ishaun, we all, we're trying to sit here seeing if we can, broker peace to a certain extent, because it just seems to anyone involved in this that the barriers to working together seem to be so small and almost insignificant that it's hard for us to wrap our head around it. So, and then it gets very frustrating to think that as a result of that, the WPA felt that the only thing to do was punish players. and I'm just going to say punish because, no one else is suspending players. Nobody else is sanctioning players. We'll get to, your continental federations in a minute, because that's a whole different ballgame. But, why can't this be solved? I just don't. It's hard for anybody who's in the chat, anybody to listen to this, to follow. Okay, it's not about money. It has nothing to do with sanction fees. It has nothing to do with taking money from players. It has everything to do with ownership, or I think ownership's a really bad word because nobody should own anything in the sport. So, what Matchroom owns is its tour, its event, its events, its productions. And the federations, that's a whole different story. It's hard for me to understand how in other sports there are professional leagues that are for-profit owned leagues, and they still are under a global national governing body. But that national governing body doesn't dictate to these leagues who they can make money from, who can play in the leagues, who can't come back and play at home, who can't represent their country in the Olympics, things like that. And I just don't understand why we can't get to that point with pool.
And I think, Mike, just firstly, it's not a decision to punish players. Obviously, we had to put the ball.
It's the end result. It's the end result.
Yeah. Look, and it may be interim. So we from our side, we're hoping that Barry Hearn said his doors are open. And our last letter from, not the last one, but one or two prior to the last, said that they'll review the situation. So end of the year. We're so close to the end now. So I'm hoping that that there's going to be some talk, or something can change, or that they realize that this is going to be a big, it's going to be a big mess. I really can't see any winners coming out of it,
No,
in my opinion.
absolutely not.
So I thought I'll just let you know that it's not really that we made a decision to punish players. It's everyone wants to rush to that conclusion because we are the WPA. But coming back to all the other federations and the sporting codes that you talk about, that I may be wrong here, but like Barry, who refers to snooker and darts, and when I look at those disciplines, to me, they fairly one discipline sport, one discipline game.
Right.
I know there's various forms of snooker, but the 15 reds, what they play is about what the world knows, and same with the darts, but with pool, around the world, and I'm not sure what how much your knowledge is about the sport around the whole world, but one thing about pool, we have we worse than athletics. At least athletics got 100 meters, 200 meters, 400 meters, then hurdles, high jump, and it's like in that you can't go and take out the 100 meters from athletics and build an international thing just around that, make one track just for that, try and fill a stadium in just for one thing. And that's what it kind of feels like with 9-ball at this point in time. The WPA has to look after pool disciplines around the world. We do have a lot.
Yeah, but they don't have any interest in anything other than 9-ball. they're not coming to you
Matchroom.
guys and yeah, they're not coming and dictating how to govern those other disciplines and promoters who may be putting on those events. They're just wanting to be able to do their 9 ball events and not have any players affected otherwise for participating in those events.
So that's what I said before they come in. Matchroom as a company has obviously, they were in the sport and then they came, I would say, came back into the sport. So everybody knows that we were, let's say, pool was on the rise. So at this point in time, everybody who's getting in it, I'm happy that companies can come in and make money in their field. If Matchroom's a production company, that's what I knew they were. They have all the massive media rights or television deals and things like that. That's where they make their money. And I'm wishing they can make tons of money so they can throw a bit more towards the pool players. We don't want to stop that, and we are not stopping that. And our contracts give them 100% of those rights. So we're not stopping that. We're talking about the disciplines that belong to the sport.
Right.
So we can't let someone come and take one of them away.
I don't disagree with that.
That part is the problem.
I don't disagree with that in part because, you've got, 9 ball, you've got other events, you've got 9 ball through all these national and continental federations. They develop, 9 ball, the Euro Tour. Well, I think we'll probably switch to 10 ball, but there's a lot of things. There's a lot of 9 ball out there that's not in our purview. But what I just still can't get around is why isn't Matchroom looked at as a professional league that can be run separately than WPA federation structure, right? Why can't it just be looked at as a league? And I don't want, I don't want to refer to WPA as governing amateur pool because it's not. It has pro 10 ball, pro 8 ball. It has pro 9 ball events that are not in Matchroom. I get all that, but the Matchroom World 9 ball Tour it's a product of a promotion company trying to run one discipline because it's easier to market that way. It just, it's got to be functional for the WPA to allow them to do that. And if you're saying that the sticking point is one word and that's ownership, then it seems like that's not a hard thing to negotiate.
Okay, well, Mike, I hope it's not hard to negotiate, but we are happy for the World 9-Ball Tour. We don't. And in the history of the WPA, we did not dictate to promoters anything that would make them run away. We've kept the promoters. That's why we had the great relationship with them. Our history is that we've never lost promoters because really our previous president, in some people's opinion, have given promoters too much of freedom. So the tour is fine. We're not stopping that. We're only talking about sanctioning the events with the world body. So we're all under one banner. As long as we're under one banner, that makes it so much easier for everybody. They were part of it for over 20 years. They acknowledged it. They got into the sport. They were in other sports. They came in. They from the very first World Championship that I attended that Matchroom had was in Cardiff. And the guy, it was like a ring announcer. They brought the guy from boxing, and he repeatedly said, and sanctioned by the WPA, to make that the legitimate World Championship. So they know the value. That's what makes it legitimate. Why wouldn't you want to do that?
You mentioned you not trying to stop it. So we've heard from reliable sources, whether it's the WPA or it's active federations, that various cities hosting Matchroom 9-ball ranking tour events have been contacted in an attempt to convince them to not work with Matchroom. Do you know, or is there any truth to that statement, Ishaun? Whether on your side or members under the WPA with their federations.
Yeah, no, I can answer that for me quite clearly. So, and just for clarity, I'm not saying. I try to say that we don't want to stop the 9-ball tour. We want them to be sanctioned, but as long as they are not sanctioned, yes. So what you've heard is quite true. I personally am involved in contacting national federations, and where if non-sanctioned events, and we're trying to get them to understand that it should be sanctioned. And places they were not made aware, so they can't even understand that some of these. Vietnam had a tournament. The city put a lot of money in the tournament, and when the moment they hear the word sanctioning, they want to know, well, how much does it cost? Because usually that's what it is. It's like, well, how much more money must I go and find now for this tournament? And then when we talk to them and we tell them what we're looking for and what it to fall in, then they can't believe that this is an issue either. So yes, my job as a president is to anybody who is having non-sanctioned, I got to try to get them to just sanction it.
But you realize the effect that could have on players and their ability to earn money, right? Like if that event were to go away, let's say hypothetically, then you realize what it could do to those players.
Correct, but so remember, we don't want the events to go away. We just want them to sanction with us. It is Matchroom that I've been told personally. Now, obviously, nobody wants to put it in writing because they have contracts with Matchroom, like we have. I can't discuss the contracts. But they do say that they don't know why all this trouble, but Matchroom has told them they cannot sanction with the WPA. So,
but from my understanding, Hanoi was reaching out to the city of Hanoi. What was done in an attempt to try to get it canceled, whether through you or through the ACBS.
Yeah, no. So it was. So if you recall, that event was called the Asian Open.
Right.
It was not the Hanoi.
They had to change the name.
Yes, and that's just showing that when people don't like this, the word structure that we use, but the structure has a meaning, and we have that tournament that they then had to change the name because they knew you can't go and just create names. Other people have authorities over it.
So the WPA owns the name Asia for pool events?
Yeah, so let me, all right, it's all different questions.
Be careful with the word ownership here.
Yeah, so that's why I said, so it's not in the WPA obviously owns none of those things. In fact, the WPA has the authority over the word world. That's generally the norm. All these equivalent federations, that's what they thrive on, the word world, because the World Championship, world.
Is that through IOC affiliation?
So again, yes, that's what makes it the legitimate one. When you have two bodies in the world, let's say there's two gymnastics bodies or two tennis bodies or whatever. If there is two, the only thing that we use the word for, which is legitimate, is where governments are involved and where funding gets involved. It doesn't mean the other one is not legitimate, but for the lack of a better word, yes, the IOC, then if you want to check it out, you will log onto their website and see who's their members, and then you'll find, all right, so that's the one, and that's the one you'll know governments will then support at local levels, grassroots levels, and all of that. So that's what legitimate means for that purposes. And in terms of the names, a national championship should belong to the federation of that sporting code. And when it comes to Asian pool, then the Asian Federation should be the one that has the rights to that. And if you go to any country that follows those rules, then and Vietnam is one of them. So they had to relinquish that name because they didn't get it from there. Yeah. So and again, we don't want to stop the tournaments. It's the last thing that we want to do. Obviously, we must be really stupid if we want to stop tournaments, because that's going to be the end of us. We want the tournaments. We want them to work with us like people have worked for all this time. We can't comprehend it. If anybody, the last time Mike said that we'd maybe get Emily on and discuss it, I said it's fine, because at least maybe we might hear from them. I know they're a company and I know they have different objectives. But we can solve it. If it's solvable, we can. Just not, let's call it ownership or given the right. And as I said before, it's not because we don't want to. We can't. as a president of the federation, I cannot sign over any of the disciplines. I'm not authorized to do that. I'm not mandated.
So-
we cannot do such things.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, no, I would like to, we could spin our wheels on, ownership of a discipline and reasons for that all we want. What I'd like to transition to is, we keep bringing up things like the ACBS, EPBU, things like that. I'm really curious about the structure of the WPA in terms of it feels to me like the tail's wagging the dog, because the WPA got together and voted on this edict to players going forward about unsanctioned events, which starts theoretically March 1st. But the Asian
Except if you're ACBS.
Confederation of Billiard Sports and the EPBF already have bans in place that they're enforcing now. So, I don't really, who tells who what the rules are, because it seems like, the ACBS and the EPBU, they're doing what they want no matter what the WPA says as an umbrella group. What am I missing?
Yeah, again, not easy for Americans to understand, but
here we go again, anti-American bashing.
Come on, man.
More America bashing.
Here we
We're
go.
used to it. Come on, bring it.
For us, we wouldn't have asked that question by too many other people from outside. But yeah, so how it works basically is our members, they have their autonomies. So let's say the WPA didn't build them; they built themselves, right? Through starting off with national federations. And so if you take how they get created, from the national federations getting together, making up the continental body, they are governed by their members. So our member, the continental member, like the EPBF you use as an example, they have, I think, about 40 countries that would be their General Assembly. They finalize, approve, rubber stamp everything in their GA with those 40 countries. And each country, they again, one step below, have their own autonomy, because they know what's best for their nationality, their people, and they build up a sport. So when it comes to what's in the best interest of the sport, it is kind of at the national level, then the continental level, and then the world level. That's where we come. We bring everybody to the table, and we have 6 continents. And so for something to be passed, you need a minimum of 4 to vote in favor. So it doesn't mean everybody will be happy when decisions are made. Actually, not everybody's. It's not what somebody wanted.
Here's what I don't get is, go ahead, Mike.
No, if the vote wasn't unanimous, but yet it's affecting all the players, so then why wouldn't all the federations have to follow those guidelines then?
Well, they do now, starting in
Well,
March.
because ACBS and like in Europe, they're still doing what they want to do when they want to do it, and I'd imagine that other federations could just as well say we're not going to wait till March. We can start doing our own thing, like he's saying right now, anytime we want, soon before March.
Right.
So correct. So they don't make the decision for the world, though. They can only make it for their territory.
Correct.
So if it's affecting them, you must understand, like the ACBS that you brought up, right now, a lot of events are going into their territories without them being involved at all, and governments are involved and cities are involved. So when it's affecting them, they will take action they've taken action. They can take action on their players, for their members, and events in their territory. They can do that. The Europeans, EPBF, they're in the war that's going on in Ukraine and Russia. They made decisions, but so in Europe, Russian athletes have a problem to play pool, but outside in America or Africa or somewhere else, they would be able to play. So yes, I know that's why I said not so easy to understand, but I think the simplest way, each one has the control over their players.
Okay, so let me put it this way: could one of those federations then opt to not ban their players?
No.
A continental federation, once the WPA has determined something, all the continental federations have to follow that.
Correct. So our data is of from March, that
Okay.
they can't choose to go against the global view.
So let me ask, this seems like it's mostly an EPBF ACBS issue, because those are the continents that have the most government funding, the most national members, right? US does not have that. The US has neither. Why did the WPA see fit to force these other continents to play the same hardball that Europe and China and Asia are playing when they didn't want to?
So that's the difference, that a world decision is made. They have to make the decision what's best for the whole world. So you can't separate one region, So in all voting scenarios, 5 people come to vote on something, the majority would go, and then you got to walk out and support that decision, because that's what's best for the whole world, for the future. That's what these great leaders come and do. Try and make a decision that's going to work for the whole world. You can't, when you take an action, if you do something, and in your case, if you say America is not like that, they don't get funding, they don't get anything of that sort. So if you say, make a rule, this is applicable to everyone except American athletes, you're not going to get.
Well, no, you could have just said, let's not vote on this rule. Asia and Europe, if you feel like you need to do this, continue to do it. US, if you don't want to ban your players, you don't have to do it.
There's already exceptions.
Why don't you? Yeah, I mean, why isn't Asia and Europe now having to wait until March 1st to ban players? I mean, everything seems to be going in the wrong direction as far as, like I said, the tail wagging the dog. I'm just not getting that.
No, they're not. They don't make the world decisions. As I said, they made it for their territories. They're entitled to do that, and that's what they've done. But we've made the decision for the world, So that this decision, which becomes effective then, whether some of them fall part of it or not, come after March. Any player from anywhere in the world, the rule will be same for everybody. It doesn't matter where they come from. Those that started it earlier, remember when we made these decisions, I did kind of tell you we're going to go in and it's going to, that's what's going to be put onto the table. But that was just about getting a decision made to take such action. Implementation date, that took even more hours to figure out when would be ideal. How many players have bought plane tickets? How many players have? So a lot of thought went into getting that date that was sufficient. People brought up topics like players' mental health. They must not be rushed into something.
That ship is long sailed, buddy.
You have a hard time selling players' mental health to us right now, but go ahead. So how did you come up with March?
Yeah,
what were the reasons?
The timeline was brought up looking at when it was going to release and go around the world. So what happens, even though we have let's say a good enough network, the WPA sends everything to its 6 continental members. The continental member will send it out to their 20, 30, 40 countries, easier in BCA, but others have more communication to go through. So we looked at, by the time it reaches ground level, so that everybody is aware. And we took into consideration the events on the calendar, and people, some players had given input on some of their let's say, trips and coordinating the things. So there was nothing further on the calendar after the World Championship that was going to be, which was starting in February, and that people would have already made arrangements for. And that's how we kind of came up with the date. We said that's a safe enough date, enough time for everyone to see. Also in the WPA, what was exposed in the General Assembly, that a lot of our rules and regulations that we follow are really outdated. Things have changed, and some of them needs to be revised. So that was actually brought up at the previous General Assembly, and it's been worked on. So from rules. We got a referees committee. There's lots of things happening right now, fixing little mechanical things just to make us work more efficiently, cleaning up the house, so to say.
Is the support for players within their federations consistent throughout that federation? Like, is it equal for players?
No, to my knowledge, not. If we use Asia as an example, or Europe, some countries, their players get far more benefits from their country than others. Right to countries not getting any benefits.
That's what it seems like to me. That's why it seems to us that everyone's being strong-armed by these associations and by these federations that get the most government funding, right? And I'm not going to make any accusations of people worrying about their paychecks, but it seems like that's who's running these decisions, because they're the ones who feel like they have the most at stake, and it's affecting all these other players from other countries where they don't get that kind of support. And I'm just really struggling with how there's fairness in that.
Yeah. How do you advocate for those players?
So I think because you focus in on the wide variety we have, it is the problem we sit as the WPA, not just us, but almost every sporting code goes.
I get it, but so it just seems like the strong are running the ship.
The point you're missing is it's not about who's getting money and who's not. What we strong arming anybody in, if that's the word you want to use, is trying to get Matchroom to sanction their event. We wouldn't be talking about this complex.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't be. But I think strong arm is a really appropriate.
It's kind of
when
fitting.
I see the letters come out from the Asian Confederation of Billiard Sports, which is less than a year old as the Continental Federation for the WPA, and is sending out notices that are just brutal in banning players left and right. There were 100. They sent out something about after Hanoi saying every Asian player who played in Hanoi is banned right now. There was 123 players on that list that are now persona non grata with the Asian Confederation of Billiard Sports. And this is a group that before last October never had anything to do with pool. It's a snooker group.
And so, you guys are empowering them.
So for me to use the word strong arm, I don't think is really going out on a limb.
So look, their decisions, and we're well aware of the ACBS and as an organization, how they came about. But on the other hand, as I just said, Asia is where the sport, the billiard sport or pool sport, is really getting better. There's a lot of events going to be announced in there. So,
no, go ahead, Ishaun.
Oh, all right. Sorry. Yeah. So we've got I think some of announcements coming up on our own from the ACBS. Some of the countries are putting up events. So I think in another, well, let's assume even this few months that's left until February, maybe we might just realize that we finally got our best member in Asia. Our previous member hardly took an event into Asia, and our new member is working on lots of events.
It's hard to describe them as your best reference there in Asia, just considering the things they're doing. Like, that's a poorly chosen word there, Ishaun.
It sounds like now that they want to compete with Matchroom ranking events by going out of their way to stage all these events that they're going to force players to go to and make a choice between those and Matchroom events. I don't see how that's solving any problems. To me, it's only deepening the divide.
It's not to me, Mike. Your focus is just on. For me, I really think for anybody, we should be questioning what we're going to do to get Matchroom to sanction.
Yeah, but that's a conversation we have to have with Matchroom. We can talk about it till we're blue in the face, but until we sit down and have Emily or Barry Hearn or someone like that in front of us and we ask the same questions to, we're all just speculating, and obviously we all wish that they would come to the table and we could get things sorted out. But for right now, they're not. So I prefer to talk about what's in place now and what's happening with players now and events now, and we'll approach Matchroom later, because it's we're just all.
Let's talk World 9-Ball Championship. It's still an event you guys sanction with Matchroom. How does this ban affect that relationship going forward, and that event in particular?
So as mentioned previously, part of the rules or the contract, terms of the contract, players that are not in good standing cannot play in the event.
Even under a promoter's wild card or a promoter's exemption?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Okay.
Let's use an
Just
example
want clarification. Okay.
Yeah, it wouldn't matter. So if a player, just to use a drug offense for now, if a player is suspended because of a drug offense, as an example,
or let's just say because
doesn't matter if the promoter wants that. That's part of.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the rules of the game. So if you're not in good standing with your federations, then obviously you can't go and play in the World Championship, and that is a clause that exists over there. I think we've spoken about that before. So the World Championships that's coming up, yes, it's sanctioned by Matchroom. We're not happy. The contract, it was signed in 2019. In 2020, I think we didn't have an event, but 21. WPA received 64 spots for the championship, and Matchroom had 64. The year thereafter, Matchroom WPA had even got a few more than 64 spots, and this year we got one. And the reason we got one, because the contract states that Matchroom has the right to do that.
You got one spot
for this year, yes. Matchroom chose the rest of the players. So, and that's because the contract states that. The contract states that Matchroom has the right to choose, the final right. But what I'm saying is, when it was signed, there is a sense of, let's say, agreement or gentleman agreement that how the basis of an event is. And that's how it was run. There was no problem for those years, except for this year, where we had all those challenges for things that were put into the contract that got enforced. As I also told you, in the same contract, it states kind of that they have the right to World 9-Ball, and attempted to stop our juniors and women's events. So they were enforcing things that were in that contract that we got shocked that was signed, by the previous leadership. So, but we are where we are, and the World Championship.
From what I understand, it's one for the WPA, 100 off of rankings, and 27 go to the federations. That's how it breaks down. Your federations.
No, we for Poland we received one spot.
We'll have to get some clarification on it.
Yeah, and as I said, it was not for a World Championship, and for most people, as we just spoke of, these countries that get funding. They get funding to go play in the World Championship, the World 9-Ball Championship. That's where they get their support for. So if they don't have any allocations or means to get into it, Matchroom is using players of the Matchroom ranking, for the World Championship. And that would have been okay. It was agreed. I think they're supposed to have 64 spots. That's how it's supposed to have been. That was so that they could build and grow that side of their tour. And we would have had enough spots to give our members so they all could survive around the world. If we don't give our members spots, then they can't survive. But when Matchroom enforced that rule, that was a problem.
But looking forward, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to ask. So what's the plan for the WPA moving forward as far as the calendar, assuming everything stays the course? What's the plan to grow the calendar from your standpoint in y'all's events in 24?
It's actually looking quite good. I'm personally working on 3 contracts right now that for 3 events. I'm sure as the time goes by, there's a lot more interest, but those would be for the 9 and 10 ball game. The biggest thing that I'm currently working on is on the hayball side for hayball outside of China. Everybody knows it's unreal in China. Doesn't help us much outside China. but they to get the game really going, one company is launching a massive campaign, huge figures to roll out the game around the world. So
I hope they don't own
some good.
Hayball.
Sorry.
I hope they don't own Hayball.
Yeah.
With that kind of money, then maybe they can, Mike.
Well, that's why I said, fortunately, they don't. It's a WPA.
Okay.
All the WPA disciplines are there. It's quite straightforward. But investors are welcome, and we want people to come. Like I keep reminding and saying all the time, the good part is, what is good, you should know, is they're sanctioning with us. You know, they sanction the tournaments. They know what they should be doing, and at least that's a good part for us. Even the ones that we in talks with, people have approached us events. So at least I think it's on the calendar, and it's actually a good time for the WPA, to put all their events. As the contracts get signed up, we generally put the dates on the calendar. We had a really good year, for 23 for all the events that took place. Lots of monies for all the players, increase from previous years, and I think next year looks even brighter from the parts that I'm dealing with.
Well, I mean, there wasn't no China Open and Qatar Open previously, so you could only go up from there. I'm curious about that calendar though, because I've been hearing, some of these events that you have on your calendar are going to be, going the other way as well. So, as you have more information on that, we'd love to hear it for the, just for the players to be able to figure out what they're signing up for one way or the other and basing their decision on. What's the criteria for being a banned tournament, so that way we know here in the U.S. what tournaments is it going to affect or could possibly affect if players are playing in it?
Yeah.
So we have our guidelines that show us what is a tournament that should be sanctioned, and basically these are the international events. Our guidelines show that 1/8 of the field or more than 8 players international. As we would know, if there was
or more than $25,000 added, right?
25,000, yeah. So once
Prize
it's
fund or added?
Added.
So
it's either eight international players, or an eighth of the field, or an eighth of the field, or $25,001 added. So
do you realize the amount of tournaments that's going to affect here in the U.S.?
Well, that's what I'm curious of, if that's one of the things they're addressing.
Yeah. So before you get it wrong, that's what just to help explain it a little. That's been there forever on our rules. Nothing new that was made just for this problem that we're having, but it is the guidelines, and we're really going to look at international events that affect us. So the events that need to be sanctioned. Currently, what we're facing with the events that's taken place, we've had lots of people get worried and contacted us from all parts of the world, because a lot of people actually do $20,000-$30,000 tournaments around, and we had to start pacifying them to say, it's not the events that are going on like that. That's not affecting us internationally. It's the ones that's affecting us, where the bulk of our players are being playing in. And currently, the majority of those events are Matchroom events.
So is that it? Just so then it leaves a lot to be speculated. A lot of assumptions still there. So is it mainly just you guys having issues with Matchroom events that fit in that criteria, or are we going to have issues with events like the Texas Open, events like Derby City,
or
events
WPA,
like that,
the women's events?
Yeah, like I said, those events that in America, and there's literally hundreds of them around the world. That we've never interfered with them because they never affected what our purpose is for having these events sanctioned. So it's the ones that causes a problem that has brought us to this
stage. That's arbitrary, though. Yeah. It's just clarity is best for something like that, so that
let me give you a scenario. One of the things that makes events in the U.S. so enticing to Asian and European players is that when there's a big pro event, which in the U.S. right now has been mostly matchroom events, the U.S. Open, events like that, promoters put big events on the front and back side of them a couple months before, or a couple weeks before, a couple weeks afterwards, and now it's economically more feasible for a foreign player, a European or an Asian player, to come over here and play because they can stick around for 5 weeks and play in multiple tournaments and have a better chance to come out ahead, as opposed to flying across the world for 6 days of a one-off and then having to fly home, where either they win or they lose. So are you saying that all of these events that have more than 8 international players come to them, even those smaller events before and after a large event, would be sanctionable?
Yeah, so like I said, we look at which ones need to be sanctioned. And that's why, as just said, events have been going on with that criteria existing on it. We use it as a guideline. It's aimed at exactly what it has to achieve. And what it needs to achieve is preventing or making everybody fall under the one structure that we have. So if the event is a problem for us, then yes, and if it qualifies for that sanctioning, then we will inform the players that now also requires, or it should be sanctioned, and it's not been sanctioned.
So basically, they'll find out.
The WPBA women's events in the U.S., do they need to be sanctioned going forward?
So yes, so there'll be a few things attached to it. The WPBA, the Women's Association, to my knowledge, when BCA gets their allocations for women's spots, it comes through that structure. So I was told that they part of they provide the women's arm of the BCA. That's how the allocations come in, for the World Championships and things. That's where BCA gets their women players from. So just coming back to sanctioning, when some national federations have events, if they're part of the, let's call it the hierarchy, part of the WPA, then naturally sanctioning does not apply to them. And if it is needed for the women's events, then it's an event that's, again, been going on, didn't affect anything. So I don't see it needing it. I'm not sure what has changed. I must admit, I'm not too clued up with that, with their events. I just know that they come through the BCA.
It sounds like you got a lot on your plate to figure out and govern. A lot of things that are under your umbrella that need to get figured out and sorted. And maybe your time can be better served in those areas versus calling cities that Matchroom is hosting events in and try to figure out more positive solutions or opportunities to spend your time. Because there's a lot of, whether it's the Band-Aid and this federation can do their thing, that federation can do their thing, but yet they're all under us. Or that tournament right now may not qualify, but it may if we see that it does, but we're not sure yet. It leaves a lot of opportunities for players to maybe get in trouble if they're trying to play by y'all's rules, and that's not fair to them either.
I think it's the parts that maybe you're missing is it's like you're learning about it now that you've just opened yourself up to these kind of things, but they've been existing there for close under 30 years.
I don't care how long they've been around, though, Ishaun. That doesn't matter to me, because
you're only waking up to it now and giving that opinion or impression of it, but that's not the fact. These things existed all along. The problem that we are facing is we have one major promoter that's making us question all these things that we're doing. So yes, we have to fix things. And my job as the president of the WPA is exactly just that, is to protect our sport. So we put it under that category.
Hold on, and you're not going to sell me on this idea that you're protecting the sport, Ishaun, when you have more events than ever before, and you're trying to deliberately do things to try to sabotage events. That's not growing the sport. That's not protecting the players. You can say that politician line for somebody else, because that's not going to work with me. I don't care how long that's been into effect.
But that's not a politician line. There's two parties in it, and you seem to pick on one. But it's fine. That's why.
No, it's not, because I've asked you. I've listen. I've kept my mouth shut this entire time, and I told you from the beginning. Listen, we were going to give you as much of a platform to say whatever it is you want to say, and me keep my opinions for another time. But something like that, it's so egregious and obvious that I can't for the life of me just let you say that and it be gospel around here, Ishaun, because that's not the case. Tell me how actions that you're taking are for the better of the sport. Those specific actions, because if you're going to say I want to protect the sport, I want to grow the sport, then let that be throughout your actions, not cherry picked on in this case it may look good, in this case it may not look good. Those actions that you're taking, like just that one example, is not for the growing of the sport. And I'm not saying it because I like Matchroom or I don't like Matchroom or I like the WPA or don't care for the WPA. That's just common sense. The events are growing so fast right now, and there's so many compared to the years before, and that's not going out of your way to grow it ever. That's never going to be accepted as I'm growing it. Sorry.
So, so it's not about the growth of it. The point that we're trying to bring across, we need Matchroom and other promoters. They're one of them, the biggest one that we have in the problem with right now, to sanction their events with us. So in order to do that, obviously your show is not going to bring them here. You told me you probably get them here, but anyway.
Hey, listen, I'll work on that, buddy. I don't think you want to call my efforts, because I'll make some phone calls after today.
Yeah,
I said that jokingly before, but if you're open to it, I will do whatever I can to make that happen. I guarantee you. And I'll just be sitting here. I'll keep myself on mute the whole time. Matter of fact.
Yeah, you could make history and fix it. Look, it's we have to.
Build statues to them.
We're all trying to do our goal right now. The biggest trouble we face in. You're right. My time should be used for a whole lot of other things, going and signing more and more contracts. That's true, but it is getting tied up because we have members. Our system will fall apart if people could come and do tournaments and not have it sanctioned. Matchroom just one, but tomorrow there could be a dozen more that does it. You're going to be happy. You can say, well, now we got a whole lot more tournaments. That is where the whole sport will fall apart. So it's not just us. It is every sporting code where we learn from and how we look at more successful codes. So having the world body, it exists in every sporting code, is what we protect in. So those who wants to do it without the world body,
I understand what you're saying.
In order, okay, so by all I'm saying is, how do I bring them to the table? I gotta keep trying to tell them, please sanction the event with us. Why are you not sanctioned? So I go to they don't want to talk to us anymore, as you know. So we have to go whenever we hear an event.
We've heard otherwise, but I'm not going to go back and forth on that. Listen, the bottom line is, from your standpoint, are you open to going back to the table and discussing things with Matchroom to try to figure out some kind of resolution? If they send an email tomorrow, are they getting a response back within a week?
They'll get it back in a day if it is for the sanctioning of falling under our system, sanctioning, no money needed, whatever that makes it work. We're ready to talk. We don't want to do what we're doing.
So you're saying the money isn't the issue. If they said we'll sanction your events without paying a sanctioning fee, that's not a sticking point from the WPA.
That isn't, because, as I'm saying, I'm giving you inside info from the board. Matchroom is a good client of ours already, so we don't need to make more money. The WPA only needs limited funds for what it needs to do, and we are doing really well with that. So these events, to solve the problems of the players and to solve these decisions they have to make and stop fighting with countries, and wow, what an end it'll come. All they have to do is sanction the events.
I think the Asian will still do what they want to do, but that's okay.
That's not true. That's not true. That is where the WPA does come in. So the ACBS is doing things in line of our rules and regulations. They're not doing something contrary to that.
Right.
So, and like I said, we do have
just they're just a little early to the party. That's all.
They're doing, from what I've been told, they're doing what they have to do because they've been affected more than others. The members in Africa and South America are less affected at this stage.
How does this affect junior players, Ishaun?
I don't understand. What do you mean, junior players? How does it affect?
If junior players are playing in non-sanctioned events, are they still under that same guideline? so they're not going to get spots in junior world championships and things like that.
Oh yes. There's no, let's call it, no discrimination in the rule.
Oh,
Anybody.
we appreciate that, by the way. Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah.
Thanks for including the kids in there too, buddy.
Yeah. Look, we got to teach them when they're young, I guess. So hopefully they would. Hopefully they don't need the money. But the pro players are really the, let's say, that is where the focus was. I'm maybe in America, a lot of junior players play in the pro events. In other parts of the world, not so many. So.
Well, Rico Rampinen's played in a lot of the. He just played in the Junior World Championships. Played in a lot of Matchroom events. Yannick Prangers. There's a lot of big junior players who've spent a fair amount of time playing in pro events in the past year. So, we'll see what happens with them.
You mentioned if everything stays the course, players are paying a $500 fine to come back and get back, I guess, in the good graces. Where does that money? Where does that money go towards, Ishaun? What's the purpose of it?
It goes to their national federation.
I think that was fee to get back in.
Sorry, Mike.
No, it seems like it's kind of a fine to get back into the national federation.
Right.
The thought process for that, obviously, again, it was the whole drive is obviously for players to put the pressure on Matchroom to sanction, whether it's the players, whether it's the countries or the governments or whomever is involved in this. We're trying to get them to tell Matchroom, to sanction the event. This is all that we need, and for the players to make light decisions. Some players will make a decision because of convenience. The tournament is nearby. They played that event, but they're not going to travel half around the world to play in the next one. So there are, let's say, lots of different types of players. So to try and find one decision that was going to help us achieve our goals wasn't easy.
To get players to force Matchroom's hand, I don't think that's working because, the one thing I noticed after the announcement came out on October 7th is that the only players who were vocal were the players who were saying, no question, I'm sticking with Matchroom. And no offense, but I didn't see a single player come out and publicly say, I'm going WPA all the way, and we're going to try to get Matchroom to change their mind. So, if you poll the players, it seems pretty apparent that the ones who, can make their own decisions are choosing Matchrooms, and the ones who, I've referred to it before as having a gun to your head, like the Polish players or some of the Asian players or the German players, they're going to play in WP events. They played in Slovenia, wherever, but they're not doing it with big smiles on their face. Doesn't that give you some indication that maybe the players, aren't big WPA fans?
So I don't know that for a fact what you've said. I do know.
I can send you all the posts.
No. Look. Yeah. So when we talk about a numbers game, the decisions that WPA make has to affect the whole world. Like I said, it can't be decided to suit 20 people, for example, or 30 people. It's really hard to make a decision. That's what we had to do. So in terms of numbers, right now we believe, and all the events that's going to take place, there's going to be enough of players playing WPA events. It's not going to be short of players. What's happened in the world, as you know, in pool, we have about 20 or 30 really big name players, who's really made it. They're the feature, and some of them have been vocal, as you said. Only a handful of them have been very vocal, but yes, they've pledged their support, and the ones that have been more vocal, let's say Mosconi Cup players, they have more to gain with Matchroom. If I was there, I'd probably make the same decision, because players have to look after their, it's their earning, it's the food on the table for them. So I totally understand that each player is going to have to make his own decision that's going to suit what's going to be best for him. And at this stage, I'll never be upset with any player making whatever decision he is going to make. I do have a problem when players come out to badmouth the WPA or the negativity that goes around, because on the other hand, there is a fair amount of money that's still going on. We may not be as great as Matchroom in their eyes for them, but as the year that just passed, the year that's ahead, there's enough of tournaments with lots of monies where people are playing and winning. So I just don't think it's necessary to get
that's
low
fine.
down.
I get that. I'm just saying that a lot of the participants who are in WPA events going forward are unwilling participants who are going because their federations are forcing them to go. Otherwise, they lose any kind of funding they get. And I think they're in a tough spot, and I feel for them. But I don't think that they're delighted to be playing in WPA events. And I think it's not fair to say that the few are Mosconi Cup players, because we just showed a list of 123 players who played in the Hanoi Open knowing that they were going to get banned by the ACBS, and none of the Asians play in the Mosconi Cup. So, I think that you're kind of underestimating the power of what the players are saying.
No. Yeah, look, well, fortunately, or rather I'd say unfortunately, they're not talking to us, the players, in straight out for that, the way it's social media that they put in the things. But we do have players that have reached out to us and, try to question and find if there's a way. Many people, some of the higher ranking people at Matchroom have been fairly open with a lot of players. They talk, they let's say they have access to them. So just in Qatar, we had a gentleman approach us to tell us, hey, look, this is ridiculous, but I know the people at Matchroom. I'm in with them. Can I arrange a meeting? And obviously it was in the dining area, but I told him, please go ahead. And when he left, I said, it's great that people have this thing and they think we shouldn't be having this problem. We can fix this, but we are where we are. And the WPA, everybody is talking about the actions we are taking, and then they're knocking us for the actions we are taking, all because we started off doing this because Matchroom chose, after all these years, after over 20 years of a relationship, built with the WPA and then choose not to. And we're trying to get people to focus on that. Rather focus on that, we wouldn't get to this part we're talking about. It's fix the source, the problem at the source would be so much easier, because the rest is complicated and complex. So, but we're having to get into those things because we're just not getting Matchroom, to work with us, which they did all along. And it's only this year, 2023, as we said, there's all the jokes, rumors running around that maybe it was aimed at me. I'm the difference. So maybe Matchroom says, yeah, if you get lost, bring the old president back or something. Trust me, for the players' sake,
no. We're not that desperate yet. We're not that desperate yet.
You're not going to get a lot of Ian Anderson support on this show. So, we're an hour and 20 in. Tell us. Go ahead, Mike.
No, so I want to just follow up on the players coming back for a minute. You mentioned them having to sit out 6 months, a part of that press release. Give me the end goal for having them be in timeout for 6 months if they want to come back into the WPA?
The thought process behind that was, because it's an important decision that we want to drive, we want to work with Matchroom. That's what we want to do. So we need the players to make a decision, so they must think about it. And therefore, let's put it the other ways around. If we had put it at a year or 2 years, that was basically telling the player, get lost. We don't want you, don't care about you. If we put it at 1 month or 2 months, based on calendars, the way they are and the way tournaments are, players, and as you know, pool players are smart as well. They could actually manage a 2-month scenario should they want to try 2 events and come back. Anyway,
so you want just long enough to scare them, but not long enough where they can manipulate the system.
and correct, you're right. That was a thought process. That's how decisions are made. So because we don't want to lose the players, and I'm still hoping we don't get to that 1st March scenario where where those things are going to start coming in. You know, I'm not sure which will be the first non-sanctioned event thereafter, but I'm hoping we could get things solved before that. You know, I'm really
which is
hoping.
our goal too. This is what look. I love the back and forth. I love seeing your face. I love talking with you. You got a beautiful sounding voice, you know. But we want we want we want resolution. We want progress. And even though look, I may have my thoughts on whether or not the WPA accomplishes anything, even if you guys are a part of Matchroom or not. I don't at this point. I don't care. I just want to get this resolved. I just want to figure out a way to get you guys together to get something at least progress where the players can go play effing pool, go play pool, and go live out their dreams. That's it. That's all we want.
So how does that happen?
At this point in time, it happens with us. You know, like when Mike Molino said that he heard that Matchroom reached out to us recently and we didn't reply, or twice.
Including Barry Hearn is what I heard.
Well, yeah. So yeah, look, I am the president of the association, and I can tell you I have received an email from Emily. Nothing to do, quite far from what we talked about. You know, yeah, no, that's certainly not correct. I've got
Okay.
no communication from them. But I wish that is the true. You know, I hope, as you said, you want to help. Maybe you can follow up, and if that is correct. Maybe if I don't know, my emails are not working. I am from I'll find an excuse.
We'll
send your contract. Maybe it's just a misspelling. Who knows?
We'll send a geek squad to your house.
Yeah,
I
know your internet's a little spotty, but we can figure out a way. I guarantee you that.
No, yeah, really. If that was look, I don't believe it at all, because I know we wouldn't be here if that was there. I would have been. I'd get onto the next flight there to go and speak to whomever's in charge and put the pen on the dotted line and leave. I'm fortunate in the WPA that I would have the authority as a president for these kind of things, and nobody on the board's going to question it, because everybody, I can assure you, every single one of us, from board members to GA, don't want this problem. Nobody wants it. So if it can be resolved, it would.
Okay.
Do you think that board's going to be happy you came back on a second time?
Technically third time, but
third time. That's right. I keep on forgetting, because that first time was before you became president.
Glutton for punishment.
Yeah, maybe it was orchestrated. Maybe this helped me to win all those votes and become the president. So
there you go.
It's a good thing you went in that order, because since the first time it may not have gone over the best. But look, all jokes aside, we're all we want is for you guys to figure it out, really. And if it's I invited you on completely thinking that you weren't going to come on. This is my little Ishaun Singh over here. She's the one. She's the one who shakes me down.
This is the part where Molina goes pulling at the heartstrings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the part where we start playing the heartstring code. Playing that game.
We all want you guys to figure out a resolution. We love the game, and I'd like to believe that all of you guys, you, the board, those federations, fundamentally love the game and love the players as well. So. Despite whether it's interest or otherwise, so we'll see what we can do on our end. And Mike, you got anything else before we close up shop here?
No, I'm tapped out. I've been thinking a lot about this World Championship thing, and I don't want to get back in that discussion, but I guess my hope is that Matchroom runs the sanctioned World Championship before March 1st, and we can get everybody in under the wire for 2024.
No. Well, let's hope. The most positive part for me on the show is to hear that there was a potential. 2 attempts to reach out to us, and especially if it included Barry Hearn. Well, I'm going to go back to make sure I missed nothing, So let's hope that part is true.
Don't worry, we're going to push a follow-up email right after the show's over.
Yeah. I know you guys don't. Or I was going to say y'all don't play rugby, but y'all do. USA does play rugby, but the Rugby World Cup final is on Saturday. So
okay.
I'm not going to be too far from the UK, so if there's anybody says that there's a potential meeting with the Matchroom to resolve this, I'll be there within 2 hours.
Sounds good.
We appreciate your time. You got my respect for coming on, Ishaun, truly, because I know it's not the easiest door to walk in through, and but you've been a good sport about it. So from me to you, I appreciate that. So listen, we appreciate all you guys for tuning in. It's going to be a busy morning, a busy day. SVB's on deck probably here pretty soon. I don't know if he's still playing Sky. We got Tyler Steyer coming on, Josh Filler on Friday, and I guarantee you we're going to be knocking on that Matchroom door pretty soon as well to see if we can get them together. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you guys soon. And